Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and today we got that Beyonce album bomb, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. So you might think that 2 album bomb weeks in a row might be more than a little stressful for me. Hell, likely we got one likely coming up from J. Cole next week, and then Future and Metro Boomin again waiting in the wings. But honestly, that's not quite the case here, mostly because I already reviewed Beyonce's Cowboy Carter at length on my main channel. Please go check out that review if you want a lot more context to everything I'm gonna say here. And secondly, because it's a brand of album bomb that's a lot more manageable in the Hot 100 as a whole, especially as there's only like 2 other new entries coming up behind it. Paradoxically, despite all the discourse around it, this week might wind up being pretty quick. I'm on board for that. But of course, we gotta start off with our top 10, and a pretty big shocker at the very top. Like That by Future, Metro Boomin, and Kendrick Lamar held the number 1. Quite frankly, it's unprecedented. Diss songs that debut so high don't tend to hold the number 1 for any length of time. The media cycle just moves way too fast, especially when you cannot push it on TikTok. But something about this appears to have struck a chord with the population at large, the mainstream, because not only is it still dominant on streaming on a week where it was fighting uphill against Beyonce, this song got shipped to radio. It's actually getting traction. Now, do I expect this to continue at the top? Probably not, but the needle has been moved. Enough so that when Texas Hold'em by Beyonce roared back into the top 10 at number 2 with great sales and a streaming boost and consistent radio traction, it just wasn't beating the margin. Now, this places Beautiful Things by Benson Boone in kind of a fascinating situation, because it actually has better radio and good enough sales and streaming to make a play for the number 1, but there's been some cracks opening in its momentum, especially on streaming, and that might not be a good sign given some busy weeks ahead. What shocked me was that Too Sweet by Hozier actually picked up a spot to number 4, pretty much on just streaming and sales. I could never have predicted this sort of momentum, but if radio actually gets behind this, Hozier's second run might just be in full swing. I'm excited. Hell, it jumped over Lose Control by Teddy Swims at number 5, which seized the top spot on radio. Not exactly saying much, it's a pretty weak crown at the moment. And while there is some streaming behind it, the margin's just not enough to get any higher. Then we got 2 more Beyonce songs, the first being Two Most Wanted with Miley Cyrus, that if it's not getting shipped aggressively to radio, something has gone very wrong. I'll get more into the song later on, but again, I'm gonna say it's a goddamn mainstream hit. If and when it's pushed properly, I can see it having one hell of a radio run. Where I don't see that happening is Beyonce's cover/remake of Jolene at number 7. Again, we'll get into this one later on, but to me it feels more like a curiosity that's buoyed on streams and good sales. I don't imagine it's gonna have a ton of longevity beyond just some novelty. Now, all this elbow back Lovin' On Me by Jack Harlow to number 8. It's in free fall anyway. It cannot lose fast enough. And where we also saw a nice boost for We Can't Be Friends, Wait For Your Love by Ariana Grande at number 9, where you can thank the steady radio support and some pretty solid streaming for keeping it relevant amidst all the tides. I mean, some people have said this Ariana Grande album isn't doing anything. They're kind of wrong there. Finally, Type Shit by Future, Metro Boomin, Travis Scott, and Playboi Carti fell back to number 10. Not surprising in a week after an album bomb with real tangible streaming competition. And that naturally takes us to our losers and dropouts. And as expected, there's a healthy number of both. In the latter category, you've got the songs that have firmly clinched their year-end list spots for 2024, like Truck Bed by Hardy and Is It Over Now by Taylor Swift. And then you got the songs that are probably well short, like La Victima by Javi, You Broke My Heart by Drake, and sadly Surround Sound by Jid, 21 Savage, and Baby Tate. Honestly, the fact that it lasted as long as it did, it's a credit to a great song that weathered both Christmas and multiple album bombs and losing TikTok promo. It's gonna be borderline at best for the end of the year. We're gonna have to see where the chips fall out. Now, there is a lot of losers here, so let's do with the whole Future Metro Boomin entries first. Cinderella with Travis Scott at 25, Young Young Metro with The Weeknd at 40, We Don't Trust You at 43, Ice Attack at 72, Slimed In at 78, Fried Shia Vibe at 91, Claustrophobic at 92, Magic Dawn 1, Princess Diana at 93, and Everyday Hustle with Rick Ross at 98. Then we got our other losses off the debuts, like Obsessed by Olivia Rodrigo at 41, Slow It Down by Benson Boone at 55, Corazon de Piedra by Javi at 83, El Solas for La Diabla at 69, and La People 2 by Pesa Pluma, Tito Double P, and Joel de la P at 98. Then we got continued losses. Enough Miami by Cardi B at 62, and look, if I'm on her team, I am worried that she's stuck fighting uphill against album bomb releases, and she's not seeing a ton of traction. X's by Tate McRae at 67, Soak City Do It by 310 Baby at 76, Mama's House by Thomas Rhett and Morgan Wallen at 79, One of the Girls by The Weeknd, Jenny, and Lily Rose Depp at 85, and for Ariana Grande, losses for both The Boy Is Mine at 82 and Yes and at 86. Yikes. Finally, we got Praise Ya in the Moonlight by YG Marley at 80. Look, I thought this was going to be huge like it kind of is worldwide, but it is on the downswing, even worldwide at this point. Now, as expected, the gains and returns are limited. In the latter category, all we've got right now is Back Then Right Now by Tyler Hubbard scraping back to 97, Fiend by Travis Scott and Playboi Carti at 53. Apparently, there was some controversy as to why this even fell off last week, given Billboard's playing fast and loose with their own dubious recurrency rules, and 16 Carriages by Beyonce riding the album bomb back to 38. Now, the only gain we really saw was I Like the Way You Kiss Me by Artemis going absolutely bonkers on TikTok to surge up to 23, giving it streaming and pretty much only streaming right now. I mean, I wish if we were bringing back Darkwave, it would actually be good. But the story here is Beyonce's album bomb, which is absolutely fitting under my expanded rules that focus predominantly on the top 20 and the best or the worst. Outside of those, and again, if you want to see more Beyonce coverage from me, please go check out that review. Amen at 87, Oh Louisiana at 70, Desert Eagle at 65, Flamenco at 63, Sweet Honey Buckin at 61, Two Hands to Heaven at 60, Just for Fun with Willie Jones at 59, was real close to actually making my list here. My Rose at 54, Alligator Tears at 52, Riverdance at 51, Tyrant with Dolly Parton at 44, Protector with Rumi Carter at 42, Daughter at 37, Spaghetti with Linda Martell and Shaboozey at 31, American Requiem at 30, Blackbird with Tanner Adele, Brittany Spencer, Tiara Kennedy, and Raina Roberts at 27, and Bodyguard at 26. So alright, with all that covered, and a thankfully much smaller list of new arrivals to discuss properly, we unfortunately are not starting with Beyonce. Number 89, Wind Up Missin' You by Tucker Wetmore.
Truth is if this night don't turn into two, you look like I'm gonna wind up missing you.
Okay, I was wrong. I did not expect that Tucker Wetmore, of all people, would be able to chart a second song. But I guess while Morgan Wallen throws chairs off the roof of Eric Church's bar, we need something to fill that increasingly nasal niche. And really, that's the biggest problem with this from the jump. Wetmore's voice is so compressed and can-sounding that it just doesn't blend that well with the hazy guitars and the very gentle groove. I guess I shouldn't be all that surprised, given that his producer here also predominantly works with Sam Hunt, but I'll give Sam Hunt this. He can at least tangibly sell the obnoxious emotions in a lot of his songs, because that takes us to the content. And okay, again, I don't mind the premise here, where he almost seems aware that this is just gonna be a one-night stand, but he's so taken in by this girl that he's almost certain he's gonna wind up regretting it and wishing there was more. I guess what kind of throws me is that assumption that it's just going to be a one-night stand. I mean, there's some mention of his rougher past and how he's not exactly all that distinct amidst the crowd, but look, basic guys wind up in relationships all the time, and it kind of comes across more like guilt-tripping to mention on the bridge that he's gonna be hung up on this girl for the next couple of years. But that lyrical clumsiness is all over the song. The first line about looking like waves on a sunset, you can crash on me all night, that could be poetically corny, but the following, you look like wine in a truck bed, I'm sorry, I get the sentiment, it's just excruciatingly awkward when phrased like that. I think I understand some of the self-awareness now why she might not stick around. Now, it doesn't mean this is all that good. Can we just get a proper push for Bailey Zimmerman instead of this again? I don't really care for it. Number 81, I Love It by Camila Cabello and Playboi Carti.
I love it, 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 I love it. Ooh, I love it, 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 I love it.
I mean, my first thought seeing this collab is that at least Camila Cabello seems aware of the zeitgeist, that if this could work, it could show her at least on curve, especially as her own pop star momentum might be flagging. Unfortunately for everyone, it's a disaster, and I don't even know where to start. A Jersey club groove where they're trying to ram it beneath these gooey, off-key synth chords, where the hook is nakedly interpolating a bad Rihanna deep cut produced by Bangladesh from 2011, and the post-chorus is lifting from a Gucci Mane song in 2009. I've heard some folks describe this as hyperpop 3 years late, and I mean, it does have some of that glossy early 2010s electro clash vibe that's all naked hedonism that's kind of aged horribly. The content's just nothing to write home about, it's just empty debauchery. But for this conceivably to work, it would require Camila Cabello to find any pocket that flatters her with this groove, or just to do more than just wallow in her screechy, compressed upper register, or for Playboi Carti to give half a squirt of piss about his verse. He sounds utterly checked out again in his lower register, which I don't think has ever sounded good, and he's got no chemistry with Camila Cabello. It's clear for him, brown bag money all the way down. Now, I get the intoxicated vibe this was trying to create. This technically might even fit in a nostalgia window for me, but look, when this worked in the club boom for Miley Cyrus or Kesha or even the Black Eyed Peas, there was a verve or a groove for the performers to lock in, or at least they sounded like they wanted to be there. This sounds desperate, lazy, and honestly, generally kind of terrible. Skip it. Number 39, Yaya by Beyonce.
We drumming.
Okay, I'm kind of stunned that this works at all, and it's probably the most expensive track Beyonce's ever assembled on the list of samples and interpolations alone. Paying royalties to both Nancy Sinatra and the Beach Boys, that's not gonna come cheap. But it's probably the closest thing to Beyonce's genre-breaking trend and experimentation across the album that actually works. Slamming those samples of "These Boots Are Made for Walkin'" with good vibrations, with some of the rougher percussion splitting the eras of old and new against that bass line, the blast of horns, the sizzling guitar tones, and Beyonce just nailing the dance floor vamping. It kind of perfects that riotous energy the 50s and 60s Chitlin circuit updated for a modern era. It's one hell of a dance jam, and you can tell Beyonce wants to be there. Of course, if I would have a critique of this, it might come in the lyrics, especially on that first verse. It's trying to recapture the vibes of the black performers in segregated America who were chronically screwed over and disenfranchised for decades, and where it's been pointed out that the line of "just keep the faith" is kind of a flimsy message. I mean, thoughts and prayers don't drive systemic change. I could actually make the exact same point about how weirdly disconnected "Break My Soul" felt for me. But honestly, dance can be its own form of revolution, especially in black spaces. And if this song had stuck there, it probably would have worked even more. But I know I'm nitpicking. This is a great song. I hope it gets pushed properly this summer. I could see it going off. Unlike number 16, Levi's Jeans by Beyonce and Post Malone.
Boy, I let you be my Levi's jeans, so you can hug that ass all day long.
I think what got misconstrued about my review of Beyonce's Cowboy Carter was just how much I was trying to give it all the benefits of the doubt. I wanted the country album. I would have been fine with the genre-bending deconstruction. Somehow we got both and neither at the same time, and it left me in a really frustrated place. And hell, if you want the biggest misstep on this project, it's this song. Now, part of it is on principle. If you're claiming to be transgressive and challenging to tired genre stereotypes while elevating the oft-ignored black traditions in country, your big pop collab that's already been shipped to radio in some form is with Post Malone. I know that the majority have just made peace with him, making some truly embarrassing statements about hip-hop and genres in the mid to late 2010s. I mean, folks did come around on his voice and popularity. A great live show helped. I generally include myself there, but it undercuts any message of black power and solidarity to work with him rather than, I don't know, anyone else. To me, it looks like Beyonce and her team are giving Post Malone the biggest label favor, given that he's stuck under Universal and she's on Sony. But if Beyonce is such a force to be reckoned with in the industry, which is what the fan base keeps telling me, why do this? Especially when the song is fucking terrible. The limp guitars, the overweight bass that's not supported by the sterile drums at all, and Beyonce going full effortless sex pop mode next to Post Malone, where they might have negative chemistry and he sounds god-awful without any grit or bite in his vocal timbre. I mean, I could go on. Why is Beyonce making a Nick at Night reference in 2024 as an adult woman? But that is the compromise that kind of puts the big question mark to this album's thematic arc. And I can make the argument on the basis of this alone, this is one of Beyonce's worst in a long time. I would have cut it, and honestly, I'd skip it. Number 7, Jolene by Beyonce.
Jolene, Jolene, I'm wanting you, don't come for my man.
So look, I get why this is here. Hell, Dolly Parton reportedly broke the NDAs by teasing this months ago. And while I think there is a wealth of other Dolly Parton songs that Beyonce could have covered or should know about, this is arguably one of her most famous, and Beyonce, she's gonna play for the big guns. And for a pure performance perspective, it sounds really damn good. She's got smolder. Beyonce can sing her ass off. The acoustic line against the gentle stomp and clap of the groove with some of that harmonica echoing in the background. And by the time the choirs rise up for the bridge, it's impressive as all hell. And you know what? In the context of the album, calling out the woman who had cheated with Jay-Z with a sort of imperial warning to stay away from my man, this following in the wake of her mother, while daughter follows in the darker edge reminiscent of her father with similar subject matter. I get what she's trying to do, especially as after Lemonade in this era of Beyonce, she's not really about to show any deeper traces of weakness or vulnerability, at least not in this lane. But the lyrical changes, where the power dynamic shifts from desperate pleas to threats, I'm sorry, it doesn't really work for me. Partially on the aesthetic level, as the melody doesn't really have that menace to back up Beyonce's anger here. Partially because the lyricism's just clunkier with the modern slang. The poetry doesn't have that naturalistic flow. It's tough to mess with a classic. And considering how good the performance is, it's frustrating that Beyonce felt the need to change it, that this angle was needed at all, and that the singing arrangement would not be enough. I mean, that's more of that weird tension for you on this album. And look, I don't hate it, but the construction of a Jolene cover, it feels like it's being built for the Queen Bee icon brand rather than revealing a Beyonce as the artist and human. That's a shame, at least for me. And finally, number 6, Two Most Wanted by Beyonce and Miley Cyrus.
You like, whoa, I'll be your shotgun rider till the day I die.
You know, sometimes the general public seems to get it right, and this is really the case where if Beyonce was gonna grab a white pop star to make sense in country, Miley is the one to pick. Because this is fantastic. The pedal steel echoing off the gentle acoustics and firm bass line, and the touches of fiddle, especially around the final hook as the overdubs rise up, and the chemistry. I said it in the review, Beyonce's got more chemistry with Miley Cyrus than she's had with anyone in decades, including her husband. I'm not quite sure why it is though. Maybe it's just Miley having that texture in country that feels more naturalistic, and the refusal to belt down as Beyonce belts, where they're able to play off each other closer to being equals, which works for what's otherwise a pretty basic ride or die campfire song of camaraderie. Because let's be real, it's not doing anything all that special lyrically, and personally I think that's fine. The underlying melodic structure of the song, especially given what's being subtly borrowed from Fleetwood Mac's Landslide, already a classic, paired with some great performances and stellar harmonies, I think that's enough to seal the deal for me. It's easily my favorite song from the both of them in years, when they just get out of the way and let the music speak for itself. It's got the feel being a slam dunk radio hit if pushed properly. It's the sort of pop country song that feels like we've already had it for years. Yeah, it's special. Please, let's make it a proper, lasting hit. And yeah, also runs away with the best of the week, and Yaya is the easy honorable mention. Shocker. Worst of the week, I'm going with I Love It by Camila Cabello and Playboi Carti, although Levi's Jeans by Beyonce and Post Malone is perilously close as the dishonorable mention. If Beyonce's performance was a shade bit worse, they probably would have tied. Now next week, oh boy, it's gonna be a might delete later album bomb for J. Cole, isn't it? Oh boy, stay tuned for that one. But until then, I'm Mark, You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.